Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves is one of the last films from March that I still have not yet reviewed. This film was directed by John Francis Daly and Jonathan Goldstein. I'm pretty sure that's his name. I could be getting that wrong though. Again, if I am getting it wrong, guys, in the comment section, please let me know that I've gotten it wrong, as you have done faithfully for me over these many years that I've consistently gotten people's names wrong. Dungeons & Dragons, you know, is the iconic tabletop role-playing game that has been around forever. I feel like I shouldn't have to tell you what Dungeons & Dragons is. Dungeons & Dragons is kind of like Superman to a certain extent. Like, you shouldn't have had to have seen every Superman comic or seen every Superman movie to know who the fuck Superman is. If I mention the name Superman to you, you should immediately know who the fuck I'm talking about. You don't have to have played Dungeons & Dragons to know what the fuck Dungeons & Dragons is. You have definitely heard of Dungeons & Dragons at some point in your life. Honor Among Thieves stars Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez and Hugh Grant and Regé-Jean Page and a bunch of other talented people. It's about a wily thief who teams up with a bunch of other adventurers to help steal a dangerous relic, but unfortunately they run afoul of some people along their journey. It creates this big end of the world type of situation. I gotta say, I've never actually been a huge fan of Dungeons & Dragons, which is kind of weird because I'm like the fantasy nerd around here. If there's somebody else around here who's like a huge fan of fantasy and they claim to love fantasy more than me, well, that person's a fucking liar, because I am the biggest fantasy nerd I know. Have I played the game? Sure, I've played the game once or twice or whatever, but I just never became attached to it the way I became attached to other things fantasy related. However, I have good news for you. If you've seen this movie, or if you haven't seen this movie, you're on the fence or whatever, you don't have to have played Dungeons & Dragons in order to enjoy this movie. In fact, you can be either a casual fan or not a fan of Dungeons & Dragons at all, and I think you could still have a lot of fun with this one. This might be the most fun that I have actually had at the movie theater all year long. And I know we're only in April, so that might not be saying much, but it's saying something, goddammit. I'm a fan of these two directors. They directed a movie like Game Night. They originally were slated to direct The Flash. If you haven't seen Game Night, oh my God, you need to check out Game Night. Game Night is fucking incredible. I love the way this movie looks. The cinematography is really, really good. Beyond the cinematography is also the way that they decided to mix the practical effects and the real sets and locations in with the CGI and the green screen to create something that feels real and lived in. I've always appreciated movies, fantasy or otherwise, that take the time to make something feel real. And a lot of the stuff in this movie feels real. It feels tangible. It feels like something that you can actually live in, something you can experience. It made me appreciate the other visuals, the CGI, you know, the digital recreations. It made me appreciate all of that shit more when it actually hit. All these performers are playing really awesome characters. Like, I love almost all the characters in this movie. And if you're gonna have a movie about a video game and you're gonna try to appeal to people, you gotta have characters that people can root for. Chris Pine is Chris Pine at this point. Chris Pine is the best Chris. We all know this at this point. His dynamic with the other characters, especially Michelle Rodriguez, was really fun to watch. Michelle Rodriguez is playing the tough woman in this movie, but luckily there's like more dimension to her as a character than you would think. Bottom line is, the characters, their interactions, their dynamics, they're the reason why I would want to come back and keep watching this movie. I saw the trailers for this movie and I was a little bit worried that the movie was gonna be like really funny and it was gonna come at the expense of the story and the character. That's not the case here. This movie is insanely funny, hilarious to the point that I was laughing out loud several times throughout, and it never feels like it compromises the moment. A lot of the humor feels organic. It feels like it was made for the characters for this particular moment or this particular situation, but it doesn't compromise the more serious moments of the movie. I love how this movie feels like a great mixture of fantasy and heist movie. Think Pirates of the Caribbean meets Ocean's 11. It has all the fantasy shit that you like. It has swordplay, it has magic, dragons, interesting locations, treasure hunts, but then it also has a lot of, hey, let's plan so that we can break into this place and steal some shit kind of elements. And I love that. This is a great example of a movie that can be lighthearted and have that tone, that whimsical kind of outlook, but at the same time, when it needs to get dark, when it needs to get serious, the movie actually had a little bit more heart and emotion than I was thinking it would have. And actually it has like some great messages about family, some fun fantasy action stuff that's going on with a great mix of practicality and CGI. I was thoroughly entertained throughout. I do have several issues with the movie, one of which is Hugh Grant, who normally I love in pretty much everything that he's in. Hugh Grant in this movie is the one character, the one thing that felt a little bit out of place, whereas a lot of the other humor and the situations that pop up in the movie feel very natural. Hugh Grant was the one thing that felt unnatural. He was the one character that felt like every time they were on screen, they were really trying their best to be funny. Like, I appreciate the effort, but the effort is a little bit too much. Like, maybe you should dial it back a little bit. Also, there is some subpar CGI, like I just have to point that out about the movie. It's not like horrendously bad for most of the movie. There is some good CGI in the movie. When it's bad, it's really bad. Like, it makes you feel like it's setting movies back 15 years or so, and you should not feel that way about a movie that came out in 2023. The villain for the movie is kind of disappointing. You don't really spend a lot of time with them. You don't get a ton of insight into them as a character or as a person. I guess it doesn't really matter that much, but I'm just saying it stands out in a movie that has so much good character work for everybody else. Dungeons and Dragons was funny, it was emotional, it was action-packed, it was lighthearted, it was everything I hoped it would be, but also didn't know that it would be. You don't have to be a diehard Dungeons and Dragons fan to appreciate it. You don't even have to be a big fantasy fan to appreciate it. Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it deserves my highest rating of Superman Prime. Tell me what your favorite fantasy movie of all time is. Go ahead and put that in the comment section too. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show. Stay tuned for more videos, and if you like what you see, tell me how you feel, and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.